Hello. Welcome back to business class. I always feel like I need to do some sort of international traveling theme when I speak on this podcast because it's business class and it's flying. So that's just what came to me this morning. It does really interest me though how many people from around the world listen. Like, are you listening to me in France? I know that I saw someone the other day was listening to me in Dubai. So let me know where you're listening in from because I would be very interested as to where that is in the world. So let's start off this episode with my takeoffs. So my takeoffs this week is that I've been a DIY house queen. And I have done a couple of things to my house recently. I'm like one of those people where, good and bad trait, if I have an idea, it needs to be executed the next day. And I literally had it the other day where I was staring at my bedroom floor. And for reference, my house that I bought was kind of giving old lady. And the carpet was like navy blue, worn out, like not a cute vibe. And it was also stained because I spilt my greens juice all over it. So I was like, do you know what? Tomorrow this carpet needs to go. And 24 hours later, with the help of other people that really wasn't me, to be honest. So I actually didn't do any of it. It's just my idea. The floor was laid. And then I was inspired to do my bathroom and I got some like marble tiles, did them myself. So I really am a woman that can do anything. And my departures this week, I would say, again, always totally honest, is growing pains. And I think that I always feel bad talking about growing pains. In business, not as a person. I don't need to grow anymore because I'm like 5'10". When you're in business and you're growing too fast, like it always feels like I don't want to talk about it because you're in a privileged position. Your business is doing well. But sometimes you wish it would stop growing so you could have time to actually reflect. And it feels like at the minute, what's happening with my business is that it's growing so fast that our business has grown in 3 months what most businesses would grow maybe in 3 years. And that sounds great, but we're then also having to pack like 3 years of knowledge into 3 months and learn so much and adapt so fast. So life has definitely felt very challenging at the minute, which is a good thing, but we have really had to move fast and put new processes in place, which has been a task. So that was my little departure. Today's episode is all about perception. Perception to me has always been really important. And it is, like most things I say, something that I don't hear a lot of people speaking about. And I think for a lot of reasons, I think people don't like to speak about perception because a lot of people see perception as negative or maybe lying. Like if, say, for example, I say I want to be perceived as a wealthy businesswoman, even though I'm not, a lot of people don't agree with what I do to show up as that because that's not what I am. But I think in business, perception is so important because you are being perceived all the time. Like I'm being perceived all the time. People are looking at me, they are listening to me, they're judging me on whether they want to work with me, on whether they want to follow me, on whether they're interested in working with my business. And it's all about how you show up online. Like a lot of perception, I'd say like a good 80% of how you're perceived is nowadays through social media. So I basically just want to go through why perception is so important and how to be perceived as the person that you want to be perceived as, whether that's like an expert, an industry leader, the best at what you do, like whatever it is, and some little tricks and tips that I've done to massively elevate and scale my business through altering how I'm perceived online. So strap yourselves in and let's jump into perception. So I'm trying to think where perception for me became a pivotal point in my business. And when I was like, okay, I know when this was. So when I was just starting out on Instagram and like with my business, I have always been a very observative person. Like since I was younger, I have always observed people a lot. So like as much as I can be a chatty Cathy, I can also be quite introverted and I love watching people. Like I am very self-aware and spatially aware. Like I'm not one of those people in the supermarket that stood in the middle of the aisle when you just like move out of the way. Like I'm very much like, oh, I can sense someone's behind me. I'm going to move aside. So when I first started my business, I used this sort of tool that I've always had since I was younger of watching people. And I would look at the people I looked up to and aspired to be like, and I would focus on, why do I look up to them? And how did they position themselves online? How do they speak? How do they show up? What content do they make? How do they dress? Like, what are their actions? And I tried to mimic it and like mirror their behavior. So I always joke about how my personality is like probably a mix of 1,000 people's personalities that I have looked up to at some point in my life. I think because I had so many issues at school and growing up that I really wasn't sure who I was or like very secure in who I was. So I would always observe other people and try to mirror their behavior so that I would be more like them. So to me, I think perception is so important when you're in business because it's how you're showing up to other people and it's what they are thinking about before they even have time to make a judgment. You've been perceived. And going back to what I was saying, when I noticed how important perception was when I was first starting my business and I was scrolling through Instagram, tapping through the stories. And I remember seeing this story of someone that I looked up to and they were like just doing a little talking vlog thingy. And in the background of their video was a big like B&Q van or something, or like a B&M van. And I don't know what it was in my brain that ticked, but I was like, oh, that's like giving really cheap vibes, like not premium elevated vibes. And my perception of her shifted from that. I know that sounds really weird, but to me, that's how important perception is. And it's whether, even if you're not hyper aware like I am, and you're quite one of those people that just cruises through life and you don't really notice these small details, subconsciously, we recognize the tiniest details in people's social media, in how they speak, in how they dress, in how they show up. And that is how we perceive them. So in terms of perception, there's online and there's offline. So when we talk about online and social media, it is everything down to what you speak about on your stories, what reels you post, your branding. Like perception is huge. And if you are one of those people, and I might call some people out here and you might feel offended, and sometimes it's good to feel offended because you need to check yourself sometimes. If you're one of those people that is showing up on their stories in their pajamas, maybe you're talking about if you're hungover or whatever, and you're talking on your business account on your stories, like, hiya babes, I've just woke up. This is my to-do list for today. How do you think people are going to perceive you from that story? Just think about it. Whereas if you are more put together, you've done your hair, your makeup, you've got your little ring light and you're speaking at your desk, how is that going to be perceived differently than the first scenario? And there's nothing wrong with either of those options, or what's the word? With either of those examples, but both of those people are going to be perceived wildly different. So you just need to think about, as a brand, as a person, as a business, how you want to be perceived. And again, it's like the smallest thing. So for example, I follow a business owner and the other day she posted on a story like something about, does anyone have a van I can borrow this week? And it's like, that's nothing to do with your business. And it instantly, again, perception is just like, went down. It's the tiniest things like that. It's when you post on social media, are you using consistent fonts? Because if you're using multiple different fonts that don't match, perception is you've got no branding and the brand looks cheap and tacky. Is your Instagram grid clean and concise? Because that does elevate the brand, or does it look messy? Like, such small things play a massive part into perception, how you're perceived. And even things down to like your language on messages is huge. So I get messages all the time. Again, this is probably going to call some people out, that start with like, hey babes, hey hon. And it's an instant no reply. I know that sounds harsh. And I know that's how some people speak. But when it's to do with business, that instantly depositions you as a higher, more much luxurious business. And even just the smallest things, like with my team, they would write their emails and put kisses in them or put emojis in them. And perception to me is everything. And I was like, I don't want that. I want it to be very polished and clean on emails. I don't want kisses and emojis, because perception wise, that isn't seen as, you wouldn't get that from Chanel, you know? Not that I'm Chanel. I mean, maybe I am. But you wouldn't get that from John Lewis, you know? Like a high-end brand. And that's not what I want. So I would say, for me, how I thought about perception, I love a Pinterest board. So sometimes I make Pinterest boards. I literally just think about who I look up to and who I aspire to be like, or that, you know, inspires me as a person. And I do just look at how they show up. Do they show up on their stories in their pajamas? Do they slag other people off on social media? No. Do they even, like, again, and this is like totally down to you as a brand, and I feel like everything I say I always have to like back up and disclaim, but everything is down to you. If you want to go in your stories in your pajamas, that works well for some brands because it makes you feel relatable. It makes you feel like you can be friends with that person. That's fine. But if you are also trying to position your brand as a high-end brand with a team and we're very polished and luxury, that's not what you would see on there. And even just things like swearing, this is going to make me sound like such a nun, but even things like swearing on your social media instantly depositions your brand. And this, again, is meant to be no offense to anyone, but just think about brands that are more elevated. So think of Chanel and think of, I don't know, B&M or The Range or something. They are going to both show up online so differently from each other. And you want to decide, am I showing up as a business owner as Chanel or B&M? Like, there's just such a massive difference, and neither of them is wrong and neither of them is right. But the tiniest things add up in how you are perceived. And even down to things like sharing what you're doing in a day or sharing what your schedule is like makes people perceive you as busy or not busy, books and in demand, or she's always faffing about on a story. She doesn't look that busy. Do you know what I mean? So I think when you're speaking about perception and you're thinking about perception, there's always different lines to think about there, you know, whether you want to cross them or not. And one thing that really irks me is when people just blatantly lie about things to be perceived as bigger than they are. So, for example, if people are always like, oh, me and my team are so busy this week, and they're just one person, but they want to be perceived as bigger, I get what they're trying to do. But a lot of people can see through that. So I would really advise, when you're thinking about perception, to think about, like, is it you that's the brand? Is it the team? How you want to show up? Even down to the things like what you wear. Everything is perception, and everything is being constantly judged by other people. And I know that a lot of people will argue that it's not that deep, and if I want to show up on my story, I could show up. My audience like that. That is fine. And I'm just here to give you advice. But I saw a massive shift for us when we showed up as industry leaders. Like, I got to a point where I was like, I'm really sick of just being another social media manager or another whatever there's 100 more of. I want to be perceived as the best. And when I started to change my language from really simple things like from saying, click the link to book in a call with us to apply to book in a call with us. It's like tiny, tiny tweaks to position you as a leader and not a follower. And when I started to do that, I felt like the business grew. People perceive us as the best because that's how I show up online. And even now, like when I go to events or meet people, they'll literally be like, you're the best at what you do. You're the best in your industry. And sometimes I'm like, sometimes I really don't feel like it. And sometimes I really don't know what I'm talking about. But I've really molded my perception so that I feel like in my heart of hearts, I'm like, I know I'm the best at what I do. And that's how people perceive you as well. And a lot of it is to do with confidence, because if you're showing up as the best, people are going to believe you, that you're the best. But if you're constantly showing up like you're doubting yourself, your language is very self-derogative, then people aren't going to believe it either. So sort of linking like perception to when you are posting on social media, and something that I've been very aware of at the minute is trying to not overshare. And I am such an oversharer, but I think, and this is like a hard pill that I've had to swallow as well. So I'm a very emotional person, and I'm someone that does like to overshare. And when I've spoke to sort of like business coaches about this in the past, and I've been like, I just want to show up as me and be honest, or sometimes you want to have a cry on camera. And unfortunately, perception wise, people perceive crying as weak. And that's not even me being controversial by saying that. That's literally just how society sees crying. I don't believe crying is weak. I love a cry. I love getting it out of my system. But perception wise, when I was starting off my TikTok, I would speak a lot about getting things wrong and what I was learning. But people would perceive that as, oh, so she doesn't have it all figured out and she doesn't know what she's talking about. And it's true. Like, not everyone thinks that, but you've just got to be really careful when you're a business and you're posting as a personal brand, or you're posting even to your business account. If you are oversharing too much, that can alter how you're perceived online, and it's scary. And I really have to double think about things that I'm posting at the minute, because as more people watch you, the more opinions you have. And I used to not even think twice about posting some things online. But now I'm thinking, okay, if I was to do, say, for example, a quick sit down video and say, oh, like I'm really having problems with invoicing at the minute, or oh, I feel really stressed because we're really behind on work at the minute. How do you think people perceive my business? Like, they can't help but perceive it as it's not all figured out and we've not got it all together. And that's why I always talk about how fake social media is, because if I was to actually share everything that goes on in business and in my life all the time, it probably would hinder perception, because sometimes you might have a bad month just like everyone else and lose 3 clients. But if I was to be like, oh, I'm just feeling really down because I've lost 3 clients this week, people perceive you as you're losing, or there's a reason why you've lost clients. It's not good for a business to share when they're not doing well, because you think there's a reason why you're not doing well. And that's like the saddest bit about social media, is it's okay to share when you're doing well because that looks great for the business and you're so successful and you're so amazing. But if I was to show up every time I have a cry about my business and share why I'm stressed, or share a mistake that I've made, that really would alter my perception of the business. So you have to filter what you've got to say, which I'm not the best at doing. But I do just wish people could be honest. But unfortunately, people are too judgy, and people that have never owned a business a day in their life have 1,000,001 opinions on you. And clients think about this thing, and customers think about these sort of things when they are considering buying from you and investing in you. So I think it's interesting at the minute because of the whole personal brand thing being tarnished in social media at the minute. So a lot of people are arguing that having a personal brand might not actually be the best thing, because when you have a personal brand, you are supposed to be sharing your business journey and your business mistakes and your business growth. But people take advantage of that and make comments about it because you're linked to your business. So I think to the people that are maybe in a position similar to me, where you have got your personal account and your business account and you're like, how focused should I be? Where does the line, where do I sit on either side of that? Like, where am I crossing a line? I think for me, what I want to do moving forward is still make business content and speak about like what I'm learning, but not be so connected to my business. Almost like if someone finds your page, they sort of don't know what your business is. They just know you're in business, because it also makes it hard further down the line. Say if you want to exit your business, if you're too attached to it, then if you're gone, the business is also gone. You don't want to be so attached to your business and so the face of your business that if you're gone, the business like ceases to exist and it can't exist on its own. So personal branding wise, I would say honesty is great. I love to try and be honest with people, but I now am just like so hyper aware of perception, like almost too almost too much now. Everything I do, I'm like, how can that be perceived? Like, can that be perceived in the wrong way? Can that tarnish the business's reputation? Can that make us look cheap? Can that make us look expensive? Like, all of these things you have to think about. So it's really just getting clear on you as a person. How do you want to be perceived? How do you dress? How do you show up? How are you representing your business, your brand, your morals, your values? And then the same for your business. How do you want your business to be perceived? Do you want it to be perceived on like a B&M The Range level? And that's fine if you want to. Like, if you've got a more affordable product, maybe you want it to be a fun, quirky brand that is close with their audience and you can swear and you can have fun with it. There's loads of brands I follow that are like that I love and that smash it. Or do you want to be like the other end of that and be like Jacquemus and Loewe and Chanel and be high end and very classy and polished? Because if you're both of them, like, you can't be both of them. You have to be either of them, because if you're Chanel with a bit of B&M in the range, you're never going to be perceived as that. But if you're the other end of the spectrum and you're perceiving yourself as an affordable, friendly brand, but then also it's like really high-end branding, it doesn't make sense in people's heads. So perception's huge. And I love a bit of psychology, as we know. We do make decisions in split seconds. You make decisions in split seconds about, do you want to follow someone on social media? Do you want to buy from this brand? Even when we meet people in person, I swear there is a statistic where we basically make up our mind about someone in like a split second. If we meet someone in person, we decide if we're going to like them or not based on how we perceive them. So when you're representing your brand, if you're at events or networking, like how do you want to have that perceived? And a lot of people like will say to me that I do think about this stuff too much, but it's everything. Perception is everything. So because I am constantly with business owners, I always will get asked from people like, what do you think of my social media? Or how do you think I'm being perceived online? Because social media goes hand in hand with perception so well. And it can be the smallest things. Like if you are filming reels and TikToks for your business account in your bedroom at home versus if you hire a studio for the day, or even if you go and sit in an office somewhere, or even just have a blank wall behind you, that's going to look so much more elevated than filming content in your bedroom. That's just how people perceive things. To me, I see filming in your bedroom as lower end brand. They don't have budget, depending on what the business is. Obviously, filming a bedroom if you want to. I have done that before. And I know that it's hard when you're starting up because you might have limited resources, or you can literally only film in your bedroom. But there's so many options for things like this. Like, You can literally just go and film in front of a white wall. Like I'm pretty sure most of us have a white wall or a plain wall in our room. And if not, you can literally buy off Amazon for like £5 a white like curtain or something that we can use. So try and do a little perception test on your own social media. Like, do you look at it and does it exude like what you want it to exude? Do you want it to come across like you're an expert and like you're an industry leader? Do you want it to come across as in, you know what, I want to create an approachable, friendly brand, and that is what comes across? Because marketing and social media is a game of perception, and it's scary because sometimes people go a little bit too hard on the perception, and I think that you can tell sometimes that it's a little bit of BS. I think we all can be pretty on it with things like that, and we all know. So I feel like the way I like show up online is me. Like everyone that I meet in person is always like, you're just the same as you are online. And that's because I never want to show up as someone different or show up as someone that isn't me, because that's the danger of like, you don't want to meet someone in real life who's like, who the hell is this person? But also there's a whole nother side of me that I don't share online, where I'm not like put together, or I'm not giving girl boss all the time. You know, you can only girl boss so many hours in the day where I just get to a point where I'm sat at home watching Disney Channel like, oh my God, I can't have this conversation. So I think personal branding is still a thing. I still feel hopeful that personal brands are important, and I still feel like conversations like this are so important, and having more founders share their story online is massive and so helpful to people. But just really thinking about who you are, what your story is, and whether that is being shown online well enough. So I'm going to wrap up this episode here. It's definitely some food for thought, and it's something that I really have not seen anyone else speak about before. And I think that is just because if people say things like this, you can get attacked for it. Like I think I said ages ago on a post that businesses that want to be taken seriously and that are bigger shouldn't really be swearing. And I had a lot of backlash on that, because it's like, if I want to swear, I want to swear. Like, go, you swear if you want to swear. But I personally just think, perception-wise, it's not giving elevated luxury brand. So that was my thoughts and opinions for today. I hope it's giving you some food for thought. Ask me if you've got any questions, and enjoy the rest of your Monday. I hope you have a splendid day, and I will see you in the next episode of Business Class. Bye-bye.